Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the Talking About the Big Stuff podcast with Michael Cole and Matthew Cravat. I am Michael Cole.
And I am Matthew Cravat.
I just wanted to acknowledge, because my eyes are crazy itchy right now, that it is allergies, and that I also think this is the third or fourth episode in a row that we've recorded that somebody's been like, it's not drugs. But this is the first time it's actually not been drugs.
Well, I have my drug of choice. One of my drugs of choice.
Nice. What is that?
And it is
wine or a beer?
neither.
Cider.
Nope. It is a golden apple of discord mead. So it's an apple flavored honey mead.
Nice.
It's very nice. It's from a meadery in Vermont.
Nice. Fun fact about the word honeymoon comes from, you would get mead given to you by the village for a month after your wedding, and it's made out of honey, and that's why it's called a honeymoon. If you stay on the hold with Zales, or was it K Jewelers? I forget which one. Long enough, you learn a lot of fun romance facts trying to pay your credit card down. In a pre-internet world, or a pre-internet payment world.
Yeah.
So tonight's topic is pornography. Takes? No. I actually think
pornography and we can combine like three previous things: necrophilia, nepotism, and pornography all together. I'll say all three of them. We're gonna do all the things we've talked about recently.
Yeah, actually, I do think porn should participate in what our topic for this evening actually is, which is unions. I don't know why I did a rainbow. No, I've been seeing all the stuff with the WGA strike, and now we've got the SAG. Is it SAG AFTRA? Something. I forget what the second part of it is. The SAG strike coming, and I just kind of thought that it was good timing to talk about unions. It's something that
can I predict the next one?
Sure.
I think that all the different visual effects houses are gonna unionize and strike, because everything I read about it is they're horribly mistreated by like the Disneys and the other big places, and they're gonna be like, if everyone else is getting treated like humans now, we want to be treated like humans.
Yeah, I also think that is probably the one that the average person who doesn't understand the concept will get behind, because there's been some really shitty special effects lately because they're rushing those people. And whereas, like, I don't think the average person understands why the SAG union isn't a psychotically selfish thing.
Right.
You know,
they look at the people who make $100,000 an episode of a TV show and go, they're rich, and don't look at everybody else in the background who got $1,000, but they work once every 2 months.
Yeah. So, I've never been, to be completely upfront on this. I've never been part of a union. I've just never had. I've never been in an industry where I've been unionized. And so most of my opinion on this comes not from personal experience, but as is always the case, I have an opinion, because I'm a white guy with a podcast. And
that's redundant, like saying ATM machine.
Yeah, exactly.
White guy with a podcast.
White guy with a podcast. Yep. But I think that it's something that I wanted to talk about. I just kind of, I know you said you've had some experience, good and bad. And I just, we don't have to talk specifically about those unions, although I think you've already addressed a big part of.
Yeah, I've not been in a union. Just my interactions have been both good and bad.
Yeah. I have had some experiences with employers. I will say my current employer is exempt. When I worked for you, you were also like, where I get paid what I would consider an actual living adult wage at my current job, and when I worked for you, I got paid a living adult wage. but I've worked some jobs where you get treated like absolute shit. You work crazy hours, and you're making what a child. Actually, it's not even a fair thing to say, because, like, I was gonna say what a child should make, but nobody should be making uh, the amount of money that some of these jobs pay. So, um, I mean, we can talk about fair wage and living wage as well. I think that they kind of go hand in hand. And if we had a living wage, maybe we wouldn't need unions. But so,
And the sociopath system that capitalism is. What's been amazing me recently is the news reports that there are, like, I think Texas did it, maybe somewhere else, got rid of a law. I think Texas and Florida got rid of laws saying companies had to give outdoor workers water breaks, like, and it's 100-degree weather. And most people are upset that they got rid of that law. And I'm upset that they have to have that law. The
yeah,
companies work their people to death and don't give them a water break. I mean, I work in an office, and if I couldn't get up and get a glass of water when I wanted to, I would quit.
yeah. Sorry. The what you said about sociopathic system that capitalism is a great point. When I took a class in college where the professor told us that there is this legal obligation by publicly traded companies to basically make as much money as they can legally make.
Hmm.
And so if the barrier is not breaking the law, they have to do it. And he told about how, I want to say it was Costco, I could be wrong on this. Costco had these jeans that everyone else was charging $45 a pair, and Costco was able to figure out how to pay their workers, and they were only charging like $30 a pair, and they were still making a profit off of it. And shareholders sued the CEO or whoever the decision maker was there, and forced them to charge market price on it, because they weren't making as much money as they could. And Costco's point was, we can sell more if we lower the
Right.
price, and we
The
can.
reason people come here is because it's cheap. If
Right.
you have to pay full price, you go to the place with full service where somebody will help you try on the pants and
Yeah.
fondle your genitalia while you do it.
Yeah. And so
That's where I shop.
to me, I think that's not some. I guess unions can keep some of that in check. And obviously, like you said, like these laws that we have to put in place, but without that law in place that you were talking about with the water breaks, those corporations could potentially be like mandated not to give those breaks, which is a crazy thing to me. That the idea that, no, like, I'd love to do it, but my shareholders will sue me if I treat you like a human. And I think that's a huge part of our problem structurally in the way we have our laws around capitalism.
Even though it's like, there's a parable about whipping the horse and making the horse do so much work until it dies. Like, you're getting the most work out of it, but then it's dead and you have no work. It's
Right.
like, if you make it impossible for your workers to work, you don't make money that way.
Yeah.
Like, eventually they burn out, literally in this case.
Yeah.
So my parents were both in unions. They worked in New York, and my mother worked for the state, so she was the state. So, my dad's been in and out of the hospital in the last week, as you know, and everything's covered because his union's insurance is so good on top of Medicare. So the good points of unions is, in that realm, is, as people who work their entire lives, they're set for the rest of their lives with
Mhm.
continuing benefits to stay alive and live with dignity, and own their house, and not be on public assistance or anything, because their union covers a lot of the big ticket things like medical.
Right.
That's
That's
a huge positive.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's an important factor. I get the frustration that a lot of people have, where we've seen we see okay, not to go after SAG, but I know that unions a lot of times do a good thing for their workers at the lowest end, but they don't do a great job of advertising that they do that. Um, they don't have great PR necessarily, and so we do see people where it's hard to unions can overcorrect because unions are just like anything else. If they're unchecked, they can have some issues. But they are meant to be a check on the system, and the system is it as I was saying before, it's almost that legal obligation makes it almost that the system mandates it to screw you if possible, if it's possible.
Yeah. So negative experiences with unions I've had. Both were, I have two main ones. They're both with work, different companies. But at one company, we were in Chicago and we were doing a training where I was in pharma. We were training doctors on our products so they could talk about our products to other doctors, as peers and in a scientific way. Like we'll teach everything there is about our product, and then you can go have conversations, and we won't even be in the room, so you can say whatever's true. We have a slide presentation. Doobie doobie doobie. We had told the person running the board, who was a union person at the hotel, we get to slide 12, there's a video. You got to switch over to the video. At slide 11, I turned to him and said, slide 12, the video's coming up. He nods at me. Slide finished person goes, and now let's watch a video. Doesn't play. I turn and look, the guy is gone. And the guy next to him goes, oh, he went out for a cigarette break.
Yeah.
I'm like, can you play the video? He goes, oh no, only he can play the video. I'm like, can I push the button? No, you can't push the button. We'll just walk off the job if you do that.
Yeah.
So suddenly we had a 10-minute break in the middle of our session because he said it's time for his cigarette break that the union lets him have in the middle of our presentation. And our result was, we're never doing one of these in Chicago again. Like now we're purposely picking non-union states because it's a worse product when in this particular case.
Yeah, I do trade shows at my day job, and a lot of times, depending on where those trade shows are, we're dealing with unions, we're dealing with the same thing, and we're having people set up booths for us, and it'll be like, hey guys, like we need to get this done right now, and they're like, nah, it's lunchtime, and so it can get frustrating.
Yeah,
it's frustrating when people have rights.
But I mean, but when they build your rights against what you're doing, like you could have taken your break before we got to this point or after, not exactly when I need you.
Yeah, exactly.
And so
that's true.
My other example was at a trade show where my company has highly technical things and we have to set up our equipment. Like a random stranger doesn't know how to set up our equipment. But the union rules are we have to pay a union person to sit there and be in the booth while we're doing our work because it's a union site, so the union gets paid.
Yeah.
So it's like we don't need anybody, but someone's sitting there just because.
Right. It is. I would say it's similar. Like as atheists, I think we could probably agree that it's similar to most organized structures. Like I look at it kind of similar to the way I look at the church. Like, yeah, no, I look at it similar because like if you look at if you had a church that was just a standalone, let's say the Church of Matthew, and it only has the one building and the one congregation, and it's fairly democratic how things are run within that church.
No, the Church of Matthew is not democratic.
It would be fine.
Matthew says goes.
It would be fine, but then when you get, I have 19 branch churches, it becomes a problem. And I think ultimately that's the problem with humanity is if you get a large enough group, we're going to abuse the power typically. And so I think that unions are no different in this aspect from when a union gets too much authority and power, the pendulum swings the opposite direction.
But I also think it's the people running the union in some cases too. Like once you have a place where there's a chance for power and corruption, people who want power and corruption will fight their way to the top and corrupt what was a good thing.
Not in Chicago though. Chicago.
No, there's no history of corruption there.
Yeah, and my union experience with trade shows typically has been in Las Vegas. So neither of those places are probably prone to what we're talking about.
Not known for organized crime or corruption at all. Neither of those places.
Yeah.
A friend of mine who was in the power industry was in a state where the power line workers were all unionized, and he said they were trained for the rule was they couldn't sit around and do nothing. but they were paid by the hour. So as long as they were moving, they were not in violation, and they were trained for how slow they can move, to be as slow as they could possibly be,
Wow.
to make things take as long as possible to get the most pay. But at the same time, when there was a problem like a power outage or a big disaster kind of thing, they swarmed in like killer bees and were all over it and fixed things as soon as possible to get people's power back up.
Yeah.
So like they were amazing when it was needed, but the rest of the time they're just milking it for all they can milk it.
Yeah. But now you moved down here in what, 88, 89, something like that?
87.
87.
August of 87.
Okay, so maybe because you said that your parents were in unions and you're from New York, so maybe this is like different. But having watched what's the Sally Field movie, uh,
Norma Ray.
Norma Ray. Maybe I'm way off on maybe I'm a decade or two off on my time frame here. But the South was a huge problem with unions for a long time, wasn't it?
Still is. I mean,
Yeah.
Unions are practically illegal in North Carolina. I don't know if they're totally illegal, but they're not easy to have in North Carolina.
Yeah, they're not legally aided at all. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
But like I remember watching that movie and I come from a family that was not particularly pro union and at the time that I watched it I was probably still relatively conservative. And I remember watching that movie and them getting yelled at for being communists and being like, I get that
Yeah.
this is actually a little closer to communism for once. Like you
Yeah,
kind of
it
get
kind of
it.
is
Like
communist. That's the
you,
idea.
like for once that word isn't just getting thrown out against something I don't like. But I also remember being like, it's also a little like ridiculous that you can't see the inherent benefit of
It's
the
like the water thing. If you treated people well, unions wouldn't exist.
yeah
Like people wouldn't need to band together to fight the boss if the boss didn't treat them like crap.
yeah yeah
Yeah, I think the overall pros and cons of union goes way on the pro side. Like our society would be much worse.
oh,
Unfettered capitalism without collective bargaining would be much worse
for,
than things are now.
for sure. And for non-union people, we are probably benefiting in a lot of ways that we're not able to name, and some ways that we can.
Weekends,
Weekends, uh,
weekends,
the
40-hour
idea of
weeks before you get overtime.
the idea of work provided health insurance, I'm sure is goes somewhere back to unions. Um,
Yeah, but I think now it's the corporations fight to keep it.
yeah,
Like, because if we had socialized medicine, that's one less thing they can hold over your head that you can't quit your job because you need your benefits.
yeah.
You can't
Well,
go
it
off and start
started.
your own company because you need your benefits.
We started off having them because of that. Now we
Right.
can't have anything better because of the opposite side. But
They realize the benefit to them. Oh, we own you if we own your life
yeah,
insurance.
I wonder how much that happens where we force the corporations to do something good, and then they realize that it does benefit them, and then we get stuck in that good thing once we move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Feels like it's a kind of great metaphor for America. Um, this episode will not be coming out on July 4th. That would have been funny to do a communism episode for 4th of July.
So since you mentioned communism, here's my favorite thing about the right yelling communism all the time. The right people who yell communism are also into money, right? A lot.
Yeah.
So a lot of them are in corporate jobs because there's a lot of money in corporate jobs. And when they're in corporate jobs, what do they always say? Hey, we need to all work as a team to get this done. I know you have to pick up your kid from daycare, but if you could just stay late. And like they run every department like a communist commune.
Yeah.
Everybody pitch in and do your best. We all need everybody's effort. It takes a village. They're all into that. And then if you say, hey, we should have that for like a whole worldwide system, they
Yeah.
freak out that it's evil. But they want it when it serves them in the short term.
Or we need you all to stay a little late. Okay, you're going to pay us? No, we don't want to pay you extra.
Right. Well, it's the reason that they invented salaried exempt employees. Never have to pay you extra.
That's true. I was watching Fox News for 3 weeks while in Massachusetts. No, honestly, okay. First of all, before I get into the Fox News deep dive, I want to say that didn't love it, but there were some aspects that I thought were educational and that I was not aware of. And when I say educational, I mean I found I didn't learn anything about any stories, but I learned about the way that Fox News works.
Mm.
And there were some people that were pretty likable that I have only seen clips of. Lefties have cut clips of that make it sound really bad. Like Greg Gutfeld, actually pretty funny, pretty self-effacing. A lot of the shit that we get cut into our videos that we see of him are really, he seems self-righteous and kind of a dork, and he's not really that. But that's not the point I'm trying to make. One of the story we were watching, I want to say, no, it wasn't the Moms Against Freedom or whatever that stupid KKK
Liberty.
group.
Moms Against Freedom. I think that'd be great if they called themselves that.
It's Moms for America or something.
Moms for Liberty, I think.
Moms for Liberty. Yes, there you go. Planned Parenthood. But they no, it wasn't them. It was some other story where they were talking about school choice, and people keep talking about school choice, and one of the things that came up is I don't even have a kid in school. Why do I have to pay for school? And I was like, yeah, my house has never burned down. Why do I have to pay for the fire department? And my dad actually thought that was pretty funny, and was like, hey, it makes a good point. You make a good point.
I guess and I guarantee the person who says that, why do I have to pay for it, also goes to, a cashier or a waiter, and it's like, oh, why are they so stupid? Why can't they hire better people? It's like, I don't want to pay for their education, but they should be better educated to serve me at the same time.
Yeah. I think, and I'm going to get off on a slightly, I think it's related, but a tangent.
I don't want to watch you get off. We already discussed this.
Yeah, we are. A big thing that I have, I worked, that I worked retail for a long time, and I would say that having worked retail for a long time, I like to think of myself as a particularly compassionate person to workers, and worker wages and things, and as well as really pessimistic about the state of capitalism from a worker standpoint. One of the things that really frustrates me, that we all, and I'm guilty of it to some extent, and I would imagine that you're probably guilty of it to some extent, which is we've gotten so obsessed with bargain, like, oh, this TV that realistically should cost $400 is only $250. And typically when you get those bargains, you're the person that's getting fucked is either the worker making it or the worker who's actually at the store selling it, or this is somebody. It's not that they didn't find a cheaper part. They didn't
the
find
CEO
cheaper.
didn't take a pay cut to give you that sale.
And so we need to get into our heads that if we want to get paid well, we need to get used to paying relatively well. And meaning, like, we need to as much as I hate it, economy is an ecosystem. If I want to make a reasonable wage, I have to be willing to pay a reasonable wage. And I don't have employees, but you know what I'm saying. I have to be saying, okay.
I feel like we're venturing into the next topic we have for our next show almost. Because I'm say, like, part of that is like, don't go to Walmart, go to Target, because they charge you a little more, but they pay their employees more. Don't go to Sam's Club, go to Costco, because they pay their employees more and give them more promotion opportunities. Like, go to the retail places that treat their people well, so you're actually paying into the whole economy, not just the CEO's pocket.
Exactly. Yes, and you're right that is kind of the next topic. Okay, good.
I bet last time it wasn't, I just didn't notice.
Damn.
So I was gonna say, I usually go out of my way to say positive things about, like, talk to managers about employees who did a good job. And
yes,
this weekend, so I'm in the hospital this weekend, and like the second day my dad's there, I'm about to leave. I go to the nurse on duty, and I said, one of the nurses on duty, I said, is there I know it's the weekend, but is there a manager or a floor nurse or someone I could talk to? And she gets like the rigid shoulders, her head goes back, and she's like, well, I'm sure I can find someone who can talk to. I said, no, it's not, I don't need to talk to them. Can I just leave a note? And she goes, oh, okay, fine. What's the issue? I said, there is no issue. I should rephrase this. can I leave a compliment for how well somebody worked for me? And she goes, oh, what happened? I said, Gally was the nurse overnight for my dad last night, and my dad said to me, my 85-year-old dad, who's been seen some medical stuff, works in the medical industry, known lots of medical people, said Gally gave him the best experience he's ever had in the hospital. And he was super attentive and super reducing his stress, and it was everything he needed to be. It was the best experience he's had with a nursing staff. I just wanted to pass that along. Like Gally did an amazing job for my dad, coming from the emergency room to being admitted unexpectedly. It was really good. And she was like
Nice.
lit up. She went from like really defensive when I asked this as a manager, and I realized that was the wrong way to go about that. To totally thrilled that someone was getting a compliment at work.
Yeah, and part of that is another problem that we end up having as a society, which is that we tend to voice our disapproval more often than we do our approval. And I I go out of my way. I probably don't do it enough with retail and stuff, but like, I do try to tell people when they've done a good job or they've affected my life in some positive way. Um, I do need to make a better point of doing it to the people who actually don't make enough money and
Yeah.
stuff. Like I do it a lot with like, oh, if I listen to a song or watch a comedy special or something, I think I've told you this before, but Chris Hardwick had a comedy special that my sister and my mother were watching the night that I came home from the hospital after Sarah went back into the hospital, and my mom and sister were watching Logan, and I was going from the hospital back and forth, and it was the worst day of my life because Sarah was essentially in a coma, and she had had all these surgeries, and she very nearly died. And I got home, and my mom and my sister were like, "Hey, hold the baby, feed the baby. We got you a sub, have a sub, and we can shut this off if you want, or we can watch it." And it was Chris Hardwick had some special, completely ridiculous, talking about fucking a blow up doll before she deflated. Well, a blow up doll with a leak before she deflated or something. And that's the whole thing that he talked about. And it was the first time I had laughed in like 48 hours.
Is that the
And
Mandroid special? Yeah, the Mandroid.
something. And I wrote him an
Yeah.
email after, like, I don't know, like a month or two later, when I was in the right state of mind. And I was like, hey, I just want to let you know, like, this was the light on a real, like, the shittiest day of my life. And I try, and since then I've tried to do it more and more often in littler ways because I haven't had something that big. But I do, if something touches me, I try to tell them I need to start doing it for retail or wait staff or anything like that.
I'm in an ongoing email conversation with the stand-up comic Jesse Case, who had the podcast Jesse versus Cancer when he thought he was dying of colon cancer because he had a 20% chance of survival that he managed to beat the odds and survive. Like it was supposed to be chronicling his treatment and death, and then he survived. But since my dad's cancer and stuff, I've been emailing him, and I'm sure I'm one of 1,000 people that he emails because he's very like, email me if you have these issues. I want to talk to you. So he's very
Yeah,
helpful as a sounding board. But yeah, it's really good to be able to say to him, you made a difference. Listening to your podcast makes it easier to
yeah,
deal with and more knowledgeable what I have to do.
yeah,
And I'm like, if you go look at my Yelp reviews, if you see a bad review for me for Yelp, like anything under 3 stars for me, they sucked amazingly bad. Because if it's like a 3-star review, I don't write it. Like if it's
yeah,
not a 4 or 5-star review, I don't want to write it down. It's not my job to slam someone. You had to have either I gave you multiple chances or you just were a nightmare experience if I give you a negative review. I mean,
yeah,
even the last negative review I gave, like I said, I'm giving it a 3 because it deserves a 1. But the way they packed the to-go order was really, really good. So let me focus on that first. They did a great job of packing everything separately. Nothing leaked, and that was great. That being said, the food sucked, and it was an hour later than it was supposed to be.
nice. Yeah, I genuinely can't think of the last thing I did a bad review for. Um, and when it comes to like eating out and stuff, if uh tip when it comes to tipping, I am really like, Sarah gets mad at me because I'll tip basically 20% no matter what.
20% is minimum for me. Yeah.
Yeah, like 20% is like, it's easier in my head to do 20% than to do 18.
Decimal
Like, I'm
point
not.
double, I'm done.
Like,
Decimal
I'm not.
point double, I'm done.
Yeah, and
And then
typically I'm
round
not.
up to be an easy number to add.
Yeah, and I'm not like buying so much stuff that like that 2% difference is making some drastic difference either for like my wallet. So like the amount of headache it saves me is so much easier. But everyone, so now I think like if somebody's amazing, it's like 25%. Like, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, yeah. When I used to do live comedy, there was a woman in my troupe who is a waitress, like it's what she does still. Like waitress is her main job, and an actress, but that's redundant. Um, but we once, remember when she first started joining the group and was first going out with us? Like, we all had separate bills, like with the bar slash restaurant after the show. And she went around and grabbed everybody's receipt and turned it over and looked to see what everyone tipped. And she was like, I can stay friends with you. I can stay friends with you. You're on the borderline. Nice tip. She rated everybody's tip as a waitress.
Yeah.
It was
I dated a lot of waitresses, and so I got how?
nothing.
What was the quotations around dated or waitress?
Waitresses.
Uh,
Got dated also. See the opening scene from Arthur with Dudley Moore. Tell me about yourself. You mean why I'm a hooker? You're a hooker? I forgot. I thought I was just doing well.
I liked that movie a lot. I do not remember that scene.
Every line of that movie is quotable. It doesn't hold up well in today's thing because it's making fun of a drunk guy, but except that, it's every line is brilliant comedy quotable.
Yeah, I watched it like 15 years ago. It was a good movie. Anyway,
so because like wait staff can't very easily unionize. I mean, Starbucks is trying and they're getting smacked down. And it's hysterical because you got companies like Starbucks that were known as good companies. Like they gave educational
yeah,
programs, they paid better than most other retail things about it. And then as soon as there's a hint of unionizing, they shut that down. They're like just attacking their employees. Like, oh, you see how evil they are once it's people want more than they're willing to give.
yeah, yeah. It's nuts, and then it becomes dealing with that situation. We'll use Starbucks as the example. As somebody that a company that hasn't unionized yet, it becomes this difficult thing of if they're having struggles like that and I don't shop there, am I hurting the worker or am I hurting the guy at the top? And it's tough because you want to support the workers and you want them to be making a good amount of money, but at the same time, like, is my money being, like, if I shop, how do I help them
What
better?
message am I sending? Am I sending the message that,
Yeah,
hey, I'm fine with you cheating your employees. Here's more money from me. But if I don't shop there, you're going to close the store and the employees won't have any job. I mean, because
yeah,
I'm not a big sane person fan anyway. Like there's a little coffee shop on the corner, near our house that is, was a little old man, like a retired guy opened a coffee shop. He has since sold it. Someone else owns it. All high school teenagers work there and they're allowed to make up their own drinks as the specials. And I'm like, I like shopping there because it's going to a local guy who hires local people. And I'm not giving money to someone in Seattle sitting on the board of directors.
yeah.
And I think their coffee tastes burnt anyway at Starbucks.
I don't drink coffee, so for
Not a big
me, it's
fan.
like I drink pink drinks, but we've been cutting back just because it's so expensive. But
Yeah, I mean, I have a French press. Like, if I make coffee, it's easy enough.
so, do you think that the SAG and WGA stuff is gonna hold out for a long time?
Oh,
I haven't what witness do you I haven't paid attention during a strike about anything that I've cared about in a long time. So
yeah. So I haven't been following negotiation or anything, but the creatives are going to get. I don't know if they'll get everything they want, but they're going to get a lot because
yeah,
there's all production has stopped. There's no actors, there's no writers. Everything has stopped, and it's not going to start up again until they pay them.
yeah.
And
Unless they find out that like Love Island and all that shit
I mean, but
sells.
the movies doesn't though. Like that's TV. But if you
Mm,
want to have another Marvel movie, Deadpool
yeah,
has stopped filming. You want Deadpool 3, you got to pay them.
yeah. That's a good point. Did you see the thing where they were talking about taking extras and digitizing
CGI
extras?
everybody.
Yeah. I can't even believe. I mean, I get it. When you go into a negotiation, your first offer is not what you're necessarily thinking you're going to get. But
But
that is a crazy. That's a crazy thing to
well,
say.
I don't. That's not even negotiable. But they could just say is, we don't need extras anymore because we're going to just say to any random person who will let us scan their face, we're going to build the body, so we don't care about you. We just any
Yeah.
random person. But
Yeah.
it's funny because they've been doing it anyway. I mean, like Lord of the Rings didn't have 10,000 orcs. They used CGI to recreate everybody.
Yeah.
It's just one step further in that technology that they've already been doing. Maybe it's a different technology, but one step forward in that same concept of we don't need real people to do all the background roles.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's crazy that studios are fighting for that, and Christopher Nolan won't use CGI when making a movie about the atomic bomb.
I know
Um,
he really blew up multiple atomic bombs to get it right. It's crazy.
did it like what did he do to get them for like because I know that like he's been very much against CGI, and I saw a headline today where they're at least claiming that he has zero CGI shots in that movie, and I'm like, that seems unethical to have zero CGI shots. Like, okay, they're doing the unethical thing saying, hey, let's just not have humans anymore. And you're doing the unethical thing
I'm
saying,
going to kill
no,
humans.
I'm going to actually blow up an atomic bomb because I want the mushroom cloud to look just right.
Unless they're just, I mean, I think creatively you could cut into um, news coverage, historical footage of the
Yeah.
actual bomb when you get to that point, which might be more
That,
impressive than doing a fake CGI one.
yeah. That would be cool. And maybe that's what they're doing, and they're using this as like a hype point to like
Yeah.
to get people to be like, what the fuck? Like so that they want to go see it. But
I mean, you
I
have
don't
to
know.
go see it. It's going to be double feature with Barbie.
I know. I hope that they make somebody like edits a mashup after they've been released on video so that we can see Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
I also love that the actors from both movies have been like supporting each other. Like that is it.
Uh,
It's humanity at working well when you're like, oh, these two movies, like the audience is for a long, 6 months out, 6 months ago or earlier, when they were talking about the release date being the same, people were like, is Barbie stupid going up against a Christopher Nolan movie? And everybody else was like, is Christopher Nolan stupid going up against a Greta Gerwig movie?
but there's also at first there was but are those audiences even an overlapping audience? Someone who
Yeah,
wants to see the story of Oppenheimer and someone who wants to see the story of Barbie. And as it turns out, yes, it is the same audience. Yes.
yeah, yeah. Well, we want to see good stories. Like I like if you make when Harry Met Sally, it's a romantic comedy. I love it, but I also love like Fight Club, and those movies
Well,
don't
that's a
go
romantic
together.
comedy. I read an interesting article recently that spoilers for Fight Club if you haven't seen it, but they had this article that suggested that she was imaginary too.
I've heard that too.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
interesting. It had a lot of points that made it make sense. Not as good as they're all the characters from Calvin and Hobbes, and she's Susie. That's a better story. Better,
yeah.
but
I want to make. I like that. I do like that theory too. I want to make a movie where at the end of the movie you realize that nobody was real, even you.
dun dun
And
dun.
it convinces you. Actually, Truman Show kind of fucked me up that way a little bit. Have I told you that?
No.
No. I watched Truman Show came out. I was like
I, I,
12 or
I remember
13.
you loved Truman Show. That was like right. You were loving Jim Carrey, and then that was right the point that he became a real actor, not just a comedian.
Yeah. Well, Man on the Moon is my favorite movie of all time, but Truman Show was like it was the hors d'oeuvre before the meal, and Truman Show is an excellent movie. But I saw it when I was like 13 or so, and there's lots of little like things that they show to like show you how you know the same car loops the block just
Hmm.
on repeat, loops the block. And so if I see little things like that that look like a glitch in the matrix kind of thing, I always like, I'm like, what the fuck? Or if I said to you, if we weren't recording right now, we weren't and I said to you, hey, I really hate this person at work. I'm going to use my boss's name because she'll think it's funny. I hate Lane. And I just said it to you, and it wasn't on the podcast. And then
And
the
she's
next day,
recast.
or the next day, Lane is just like, has an attitude like, fuck, what is your problem? Like, said something to me, and it's like she clearly knows that I think that. And that happens occasionally where someone's attitude change syncs up with your having said something to a person who's never met that. Like there's no connection. Um, anyway, I do want to just say really quickly, Lane, obviously, I just use you because you know that I'm joking. She doesn't listen to the podcast. She is, she's a good boss.
So we'll see how she treats you 2 Mondays from now.
Yeah, that's true. She doesn't. She doesn't. It'll be Friday because she doesn't listen on. She definitely isn't paying for the Patreon.
Well, yeah, I meant she'd hear it on Friday and like over the weekend, and
Yeah.
Monday she'd come back and
Gotcha.
be stewing all weekend long. I can't believe you said that about me. Even Matthew doesn't like me, and Matthew likes everyone except for Mike's dad. What the hell?
No, you like my dad. My dad doesn't like you.
I don't like him anymore. The way he treats me. I try
canon.
so hard. I work so hard trying to make that man love me.
Unless you unionize that, I can't cut all your funny jokes out.
I'm gonna team up with all the other funny people. Oh,
I do think that there's a lot of I don't know that comedians. I don't know that comedians could unionize, but there's a lot of industries. Did they?
Well, sort of. I mean, that was the big thing in the '80s, I guess, at the comedy club and the Improv in California. They fought with the leadership to get better treatment because no one got paid. They did this night of just them going on stage for 5 minutes each, and Mitzi was getting rich and they weren't making a dime.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I was gonna say
there are documentaries on that whole time period.
Oh, I was gonna say like sex workers and things like that feel like a natural union point, like whether it's strippers or porn actors and actresses. Like I feel like the fact that we haven't seen more unionization it's a sign of the capitalist times. And I wonder if some of that is because a lot of these things came into society's they came out of society's shadows after a certain point in time where like because SAG's got to be decades. They said the last SAG strike was 40 years ago, so these unions have to be 50 years old at least. And so I wonder if they were able to capture it before like the Reagan era, or I wonder how that has affected things.
Yep. And I mean, the last thing that I remember from the last big writer strike was that's why we have, you said like Love Island or whatever. That's why we have so much reality TV. It was all born. Yeah. Also, it's why we have the Mission Impossible movies, I think.
Is it?
Because one of the things they did was they took the old Mission Impossible scripts and they just started reshooting Mission Impossible, 20-year-old scripts. They just had new actors and they relaunched Mission Impossible TV show with the old scripts. They did because it was just writers they didn't have, so they were filming them. And I think that resurgence is what gave them the impetus to then do the Tom Cruise movie.
Oh, that's cool. It's weird that you say that because Tom Cruise was called in today to handle, like I don't know. They were like it said something about him being the heroic voice that would save the industry, and I don't mind Tom Cruise the way a lot of people do, but I also think that he's getting so much ridiculous credit. Like Top Gun last year, Top Gun was a decent movie. I enjoyed it. It did bring people's asses back in seats for theaters, but like ultimately to treat it like Tom Cruise is single-handedly going to save the cinema experience in America is kind of crazy to me.
What I think is ironic about ass in seats thing is the whole trying to bring people back to the theaters, right? Mm-hmm. The movies that people who don't want to go to the theater will say, okay, I'll go for this one, are going to be the Marvel movies, the Michael Bay movies, the giant things you have to. I don't have to see Oppenheimer on a big screen. It's going to be amazing performances and emotional things. I can watch that on my 82-inch TV at home. I don't need a
They
giant
are
screen.
they're saying that it's not just the screen, but there's those seats that have the speakers in it, and you're gonna be able to feel the explosion.
You know,
I literally heard that.
but that's the other reason I don't go to the movies anymore. I stopped before the pandemic because I was going deaf from during the
Yeah,
trailers. My seat is shaking. Like I don't need that level of volume. And my son is on autism. He can't handle that level of volume. So like we stopped going to the movies anyway. But it's ironic that the people like Scorsese, right, who's like the superhero movies suck. Those aren't even movies. But those are the ones people are going to go see because they want to see it on a giant screen.
yeah. I personally, like, if I had all the free time in the world and all the money, and Sarah and Logan didn't care, I would go see a lot more. I mean, I see a movie every month at least, and during the summer, it's like every other week. I would go see like everything. Was single living in Denver for a few months, every single Friday I had off, and I'd go to the matinees, and I would just go see as many movies as I could get in with the matinee price. Because I just love the movie experience in a theater. So I personally am hoping that things keep going. But I used to I'd go see a romantic comedy. I'd go see, like, I don't have to go see a Marvel movie there. I don't have to go see the next Star Wars. I'd go see it's the only example I could think of, but like a Woody Allen movie. I'd go see that if it wasn't Woody Allen, but like that type of movie.
Mm-hmm.
So
When I was a young warthog, um, we belonged to a group in New York, an organization called AETC, the Audience Extras Theater Club. And the main thing was we would get Broadway tickets and off Broadway tickets for a couple of bucks. And it would be either in previews as they were still fine tuning the final show, or when they were just trying to fill up the audience. So they had 20 extra seats and they wanted to be full. So you called up like that day and there are 20 seats for Chorus Line because they want Chorus Line to be full. So instead of paying $65, you pay $4.50 and get a ticket to Chorus Line. It's how I got into improv. I saw my first improv show that way. It was $1.50 in this little theater under a church. But occasionally they had movies, and I saw Smokey and the Bandit 2 in previews like 6 months before it really came out. And they gave us like questionnaires of what we liked and didn't like about it. So it got edited based on it. And there was one line in the movie that I freaking loved. I went back to school the next day and I said, my mom and I saw the new Smokey and the Bandit movie. It's going to be great. Here's the funniest line of the movie. And it was when Jerry Reed was trying to get Burt Reynolds to sober up and come out of retirement and do one last mission. And he's like, come on, where's the Trans Am? And he goes, sold it. He goes, you sold the Trans Am? Would Roy Rogers sell Trigger? And he goes, no. Dale maybe, but not Trigger. And I thought it was the funniest line. And in between the time that I saw the movie and told everybody that line and when the movie was released, Dale
got cut.
died. Dale Rogers. So they cut that line. It just goes, would he sell Trigger? No. And that just cuts to the next scene. I'm like, no, my favorite joke was in there.
I don't know who Dale. I know who Roy Rogers is. Is
Dale
Dale
was
his
his
son
wife.
or
Wife.
oh,
Yeah, or son.
okay.
They were fluid that way. They were Mormon.
I know a woman named Dale, and I never think of Dale as a woman's name. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So that's because you weren't born when I saw that preview of that movie, so pretty sure.
Yeah,
When did that come
I've
out?
seen the bits and pieces of the first one. And the first one was like 77, 78, something like that.
Yeah, probably. Yeah. The second one was 80. The first one was 77. And my
Yeah.
son Joseph just recently watched the first one for sure, maybe the first two. And he was like, I feel like I should see that. I'm like, you should. So, he's seen clips on YouTube,
Yeah.
whatever. So the other day we were going out, like, you want to go with us? He's like, nope, watching Smokey and the Bandit tonight.
When Logan was a toddler, I got laid off, but I would have to stay home with him, and I'd do applications when he'd go down for naps, and I would put on. You can do applications pretty mindlessly, especially if you're not doing the cover letters and shit. So I would fill out applications and I would watch movies, and I would just, like, I want to say it was, I forget what streaming service it was, but there was a ton of good shit. I watched the entire Beverly Hills Cop series. It was a lot of Eddie Murphy's 80s stuff.
Mhm.
It was the what's the Nick Nolte Eddie Murphy one?
48 hours.
48 Hours. It was
Man, I've been in prison for 5 years. My dick get hard when the wind blows.
there was the De Niro and not Mad Dog. What's that one called? But I would watch a lot of those, like
It may have been Mad Dog.
I forget. It was the guy that was the dad in Beethoven, whose name is escaping me. He was Charles Grodin and
Mad Dog
Robert
and Glory.
Mad Dog and Glory. There was like just a ton of these like 80s like action comedies, and I probably watched 30 action comedies over the course of a month and a half. And and it was awesome. Like that's the time I wish I could go back to. Just like, okay, Logan's asleep, and I will watch on like lowish volume. I'll watch Mad Dog and Glory, and I'll watch Beverly Hills Cop, and really really good stuff. And I'm excited. I'm excited for when Logan gets to those ages where I can start showing him some more like grown up movies. Like I want to show him Terminator really bad, and
yeah, it was fun when Joseph was growing up because he liked, like, Jacob was science fiction, and Joseph liked science fiction, but it's not his passion. And
yeah.
Joseph's passion is old comedies. So watching the entire Mel Brooks catalog with him was so much fun. And things like,
Nice.
and as he got older and rewatched it, and he'd get jokes that he didn't get when he was 2 years younger. It's like progressively.
Yeah. Logan's thing right now is scary movies. He wants to watch scary stuff all the time. Yeah, well, we're not there yet. So we watched Raiders the other day, and Raiders isn't that scary, but
So
that
the
last scene is scary. And then
Raiders 2 has a lot of stuff. The Temple of Doom has lots of stuff.
Yeah, every time I brought it up, he's like, maybe we watch it while it's still light out. And I'm like, okay. I tried to get him to watch Jaws, and he goes, I don't want to watch an anti-summer movie. It's summer still. And I was like, it's not an anti-summer movie.
You'll never go in the water again.
Yeah, it's probably a smart move. I love watching stuff with him.
Jaws terrifies me. Not watching it, hearing it. If I walk in the house and I hear Jaws, it means my wife is in a really bad mood, because she's in a really bad mood, she watches Jaws. And then I have to say, is it about me? Am I in trouble when I go upstairs? So it's like, if I don't know what the cause of it is, it's very scary.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. Should we start wrapping it up?
Yeah, let's wrap up so we get a little break before our next record.
Yep. Yeah, that sounds good. So, listeners, first of all, if we would love it if you would, give us a good review, or if depending on the star or thumbs up system of your listening device, do something like that for us. That'd be great.
Like, subscribe, hit the bell on YouTube if you're there.
YouTube, yeah. Do all the things. Whatever. If it's Spotify, just subscribe so that it automatically downloads, and so you can listen to us every week. But if you wanted to support us a little extra,
like, we don't have
there is a way you could do that.
We don't have a union. Just like we tip 20-25%, you could tip us.
Yeah. This whole episode was set up as a plug to say, hey, give us $3 a month or $10 a month if you want to know my life's dream.
Or $120 a month.
No, there's no option. Well, you can
could.
We also set up a thing on I set up a thing on that Buy Me a Coffee website. Just
You don't even like coffee. Stuff out there. You just admitted you don't like coffee. It's all a fix. It's all a scam.
It's for you. It's for you because you do.
I would love a coffee.
But no, if you wanted to go support us, you obviously listening is great support. However, if you wanted to give us financial support, just so that we can keep improving, because I don't know if you noticed, but my microphone hopefully is sounding better. I recorded an episode that Matthew didn't record, so that's why we're doing this episode. But my side of that episode sounded excellent.
I got a new
compared to whatever
microphone, but I haven't figured out how to make it work yet.
Yeah, he sounds like Jabba the Hutt when it's on. But we're slowly making this podcast better for you. And if you wanted to do something to just help us with those costs, you could go on patreon.com/talking about the big stuff, and just
Give us money.
you could sign up to give us $3 a month, and then you could just forget that you're doing that in perpetuity.
It's literally like buying a coffee a month at Starbucks and giving a decent tip to the overworked barista. We are your overworked baristas.
No, that's the $10 plan. The $3 plan is not going to get you a coffee and tip. But the point being the same. We're going to shill a little bit at the end of these episodes, but the benefits of it are if you go on our Patreon, you can get these episodes early. You can hear all about all the stuff that we cut out before, like when Matthew was talking about necrophilia. And
necrophilia and nepotism together. But come on, it's not that bad. Keeping it in the family.
Yeah, it's not what I wanted to inherit. But you can get all of our terrible. They're just really offensive dad jokes like that.
But we'll edit out the pitch to join Patreon on the Patreon version, so you don't have to listen to this part on Patreon.
Great point. You don't have to listen to this ever fucking again if you don't want to. And you get it early, and you get all the uncensored stuff. And
who knows what else we might put in. Who knows?
We'll shout out listeners. We'll shout out patrons. If you donate, we'll shout it out. Your first episode we record after you sign up. So that's an option. So shout out right now to Adam, who signed up for Patreon, and Mike. We have this username Mike that's done it. So we'll shout those two guys out.
Let's shout them out. They're the supporters that we want you to know about. So come on, go to Patreon / talking about big stuff. Come on. Sorry, I felt musical.
Yeah, nice. We promised Matthew will never sing again if you don't want to.
It's only in the Patreon ad. If you're in Patreon,
only in the Patreon. He will sing every episode. No. Anyway, that's the pitch. You got anything you want to say?
That's all I've got to say. I just think that we need to all band together as one collective and talk about the big stuff.
I agree. All right, and support your local 305 or whatever.
501st.
Yeah, 501st. Yep. All right. Thank you all.
Bye.
The preceding podcast has been a Chocolate Diamond Media LLC production. Copyright 2023, all rights reserved.